Many of you know that I've been on the carnivore diet, on which I have lost over 60 pounds. What does that mean? It means I just eat meat. Beef, butter, bacon, eggs. I just eat meat. If it had parents, I eat it. And since I eat meat a lot, I got hooked up with samsbutchershop.com. Folks, you need to go to check this site out. I'm telling you, believe me, it is the best meat I have ever tasted in my life. Sam does a fantastic job with his meat, and I'm telling you, he's got pork shoulder, he's got bacon, pork shoulder bacon, he's got andouille sausage, he's got kielbasa sausage. I thought I'd tasted kielbasa in my life. I never had until I had Sam. It just floored me. It was so good. Probably my favorite, I haven't had everything Sam makes, but probably my favorite are his boneless ribs. They are mouth-watering. They are absolutely delicious. And right now, you can get 5% off of your order if you go down below to samsbutchershop.com. Check it out. You got the Triple T guarantee. It's the best meat you ever had. Should the Federal Bureau of Investigation be abolished? We're going to talk about that today. Hello, everybody. Trailer Trash Tim. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being here and joining me on our channel. I appreciate it very much. Before I continue, if you do me a real quick favor and give me a thumbs up on the video down below, hit that old like button. Thank you so much. Do it right now while you're thinking about it. And hit the subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed to our growing channel. That would be fantastic to have you come in here and be with us. All the relevant links to the channel are down below. Contact information, email if you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee. There's a buy me a coffee link down in there. Down below. Thank you everyone for all your comments. I'm trying to keep up with them as best as I can, but there's a lot of them. We're a growing channel. I'm glad all of you are here. I really am. Thank you so much. Should the FBI be abolished? Does that sound wild to you? Does that sound like it's out of left field? Well, let's talk about that today. I got to use my little cheat cards again because I'm going to be referencing this from time to time, because that's kind of what this kind of centers around. It's kind of a glaring highlight of government excess, particularly excess and overreach, if you will, by the FBI. Let's remember before we go any further, you know, we haven't always had an FBI. We haven't always had a CIA. We haven't always had a standing army when you come to think about it, and a lot of the founders were opposed to these very things. But here we are. But I'm just proposing, should we rethink the existence of the FBI? Do we really need it when we have local police authorities, we have state troopers, we have state investigative agencies? What purpose do they serve? Have we not seen enough excess and overreach and abuse by the FBI in recent years to justify at least an examination of their behavior, their tactics, their philosophy, and how big and powerful they are? I read a really interesting article on a website called The Daily Stormer that I want to reference in today's video, and I want to give credit where credit is due. This article that I'm going to pull some quotes from, it was written by Andrew Anglin on The Daily Stormer, and Andrew writes this, that we are exactly right now here on a Monday morning. By the way, it's Monday morning. Great to be here with you. Hope everything's well as you kick your week off. He says, on this Monday morning, we are exactly 2.5 years, actually a little bit more than 2.5 years away from this date, which has been billed by my political opponents anyway as being this. I talked about this some yesterday. I believe that is nonsense. Pardon me, I dropped my card. Bear with me. Stay there. I'm still here. You're looking at the top of my head. Pull yourself together there, Triple T. We're 2 years, over 2.5 years away from that date. And the FBI somehow knows exactly who every single one of the people involved that day is. How could they possibly know that? Well, Andrew Anglin writes that the Capitol has thousands of cameras. That's no surprise. And unless you don't have a driver's license, and maybe even if you don't, But if you have a driver's license, the FBI has your biometrics, and they can identify you with CCTV footage. Furthermore, cell phone companies, thank you T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and the rest of you. Cell phone companies turned over the data of every phone that was in the Capitol that day. So much for privacy, right? I have maintained for a long time that the issue of privacy should be paramount in these presidential beauty contests that we have every 4 years. But the FBI is still claiming that they are still investigating this. They're still tracking down the quote-unquote rioters. They're claiming they need the help of online sleuths, quote, online sleuths, unquote. And the media is going along with it, not pointing out the fact that it would be impossible, no matter how incompetent they are, to have not had everyone identified in hours. Now, what sort of absurd charade are they involved in here? Federal authorities have charged roughly 1,100 of the more than 3,000 people who could ultimately face charges in connection with the attack on the Capitol. Online sedition hunters have identified hundreds of rioters who have not yet been arrested by the FBI. The statute of limitations of most of these crimes, quote unquote, committed that day expires in about 28 months in January of 2026. Now, here's the rub. This is the nub of the matter, as we say. The FBI, folks, is sending a message that nothing is ever over, and they can come for anyone whenever they want. The ongoing raids thing, creates a general sense of fear in the American people. Furthermore, it keeps the event in people's minds. Then you have the fact that it shows that the FBI is totally out of control, completely subservient to the Democrats' agenda, which is intended to strike fear into their enemies. As an aside, I wonder if you know that the FBI, sitting before Congress in testimony, admitted to Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson that on this date, they found no weapons. That is to say, specifically, no guns had been recovered or confiscated. None. Now, do you remember, we have been told by the mainstream media and by most of the people in the Uniparty in Washington that date was this. And as I asked you yesterday, if that date was this, how come they haven't been able to find any guns? Not one. They admitted, the FBI admitted, they had confiscated or recovered none. None whatsoever. You still want to call that this, or do you think maybe it's baloney? I think I'll go for the latter. I mean, if you really think that date was about that, I got a bridge in Phoenix to sell you. That's all I can tell you. Yet, Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray talked constantly about the deadly MAGA threat. Really? Interestingly, they had nothing to say about the deadly BLM riots. Interestingly, they had nothing to say about Antifa. Not a peep. We should remind you, less than a year before the FBI became the heroes, folks, listen to this. This is really key. Less than a year before the FBI became heroes of the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party, if you remember, was calling for cops to be abolished. Do you remember that? Do you remember before they took over power in 20? They were calling for cops to be eliminated? Do you remember that? Anybody remember that? Raise your hand if you remember that. If you remember that, give yourself 10 points. Let me say that again. Less than a year before the FBI became heroes of the Democratic Party, it was Democrats who were calling for the abolition of the police. I remember that. I bet you do too. There are still conservatives opposing abolishing the FBI on the basis that we need law and order. The consideration that the FBI is a totally lawless organization cannot penetrate the thick layer of fat between their skulls and their brains. I want to ask you a question. Everybody sit up straight. Give me your attention. Pay close attention. I want to ask you a question. Particularly a question to those of you that are my age. I'm 62 years old, or around that age, or particularly older. I was born in 1961. I'm interested in those of you that were alive during the Cold War and during the days of the old Soviet Union. Do you people remember, do you dear folks remember the KGB? How many of you remember that? Raise your hand. Not if you're driving. Don't raise your hand. You remember how evil the KGB was, we were told, and it was, spying on Soviet citizens, imprisoning innocent people for doing things that they considered a threat to the government. We all believed as Americans the KGB was bad. And it was. The KGB was bad. The secret state police, they were bad. I would contend that the FBI is giving the KGB a run for its money, at least. What do you call it when you can imprison American citizens in a cage for 2.5 years without trial, charged with a crime that many of them, most of them, I would contend, did not admit? Let me go ahead and say, I want to correct something from yesterday that I should have said and I didn't say. It was foolish and it was stupid for American citizens to go onto the House, on the floor of the House of Representatives. That being said, we have video evidence, we have proof that they were waved into the building and onto the floor by people in uniforms with badges, shall we say. Okay, that's true. We know that's true. That's not hyperbole. That is true. We have photographic video proof of that being the case. So who's worse, the KGB or the FBI? Do we need an FBI? Do we have too much law enforcement in this nation? Are there too many chiefs for the Indians? Or is it that law enforcement in the United States is simply going after the wrong people? When criminals skate and law-abiding citizens get put in cages. When looters walk into retail merchants in broad open daylight and steal merchandise from these stores, and they're allowed to escape, and there is no retribution for them. There's no arrest, there's no incarceration, there's nothing. In Denver, there's reward, as I talked about yesterday. In the Bay Area, hey, come on in, get $900 worth of merchandise. You don't have to pay for it, but if it's 901, now we're going to say something to you then. The law-abiding citizen in the United States has a target on his back. The lawless are lauded and celebrated, and those who are to uphold the law simply turn their backs while leaving the law-abiding incarcerated without trial. I believe it's an outrage, and I'm wondering at this point in time, why do we really have an FBI? Do we really need an FBI? Did we ever need an FBI? That's the question of the day. I'd love to hear your comments. Everyone, please give me your thoughts down below. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really thank you for being here. I really do. It means a lot to me. Hey, listen, go out there and have a great Monday. This is Trailer Trash Tim. Everybody take care. I will see you tomorrow.